Zweig Group invites all AEC industry leaders to the 2024 AEC Small Business and Entrepreneurship Forum, the premier event for small firms in the AEC sector. Experience innovative strategies and insights on May 21st, crafted by Zweig Group's industry experts. Engage in keynotes and interactive sessions focused on recruitment, retention, and business growth. Join Zweig Group for this unique networking opportunity and take your business to new heights. Secure your spot today and be part of the AEC industry's future. Visit zweiggroup.com for more information. The Zweig Group team looks forward to welcoming you.
Welcome to the Zweig Letter Podcast, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting experts straight talk in your ear. These podcasts deliver great interviews with industry leaders and Zweig Group's 3 decades of invaluable research, leadership, management, marketing, client, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweig Letter Podcasts let you develop personally and professionally, wherever you are.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and I am back. That's right, I am back. It's been a couple of weeks. You've heard a couple of the breakout sessions that we had at our Hot Firm event in Dallas, Texas in September. I have a few other episodes to share with you with some additional sections from the Hot Firm that I really think the listening audience would love to hear. And I will give you a little bit of my thoughts on each of those segments coming up in the near future. But in the meantime, I wanted to get back to our normal episodic podcast. And I really wanted to take some time today to bring in my man, Chad Coldiron. Chad is the Director of Executive Search here at Zweig Group. He's also a friend, just a really good guy, and he and I work together quite a bit on a lot of things. And I one of the issues that comes up, and we talked about it at Hot Firm, which is simply the fact that 71% of the firms polled that are hot firms. So mind you, these are highly successful, hyper successful firms that are making money hand over foot. Their biggest concern is recruitment and retention. It's the number one issue on everybody's mind. I was just at a Principals Academy event last week in Charleston, South Carolina. I had an amazing time. And when we asked for a show of hands of everybody that wanted to discuss their biggest concern, it was recruitment and retention. So, there's so much that could be said about it. And I just thought it would be good for, Chad and I really wanted to introduce him to our listening audience. And I also wanted to just kind of hear what he's seeing firsthand based on his experiences on a regular basis. Chad and John Bray and Olivia Thomas and the Executive Search Group, they're doing some amazing things here at Zweig Group. And, honestly, for all of you that are listening that didn't know that Zweig Group did recruiting, it's one of our best kept secrets. Shh, don't tell anybody. But we've been doing it for quite some time. And needless to say, quite some time is 30 years, 3 decades. But we've cut our teeth in so many different ways. But I just thought today would be great for Chad and I just to have a conversation and for him to share a little bit about what he's seeing in the marketplace from a recruitment perspective, and also maybe to give you guys, our listening audience, just a couple of tips, a couple of things that might be appropriate to think about as you go out to recruit, as you go out to make sure that even the current people that you have on staff, that you're keeping them engaged early and often, so that you don't end up with somebody knocking on your door on Monday morning saying, "Hey, you got a sec? because they want to sit down and tell you that that they want to leave. They found a better opportunity someplace else. That to me is the worst conversation ever to have. And, your heart just drops because, as soon as you get on a roll, invariably somebody that's a very important cog in the wheel comes to you and tells you that, I'm thinking about making a move, or I've already made a move and my last date is fill in the blank. And so that's always problematic. But anyway, without further ado, I've got my man, Chad Coldiron here. Chad, it is so good to have you on the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you, Randy. Doing great. Love the podcast. Definitely love everybody participating in the office. So hadn't had a chance to be on here in a while, maybe since I first started.
I know it's been a minute.
Mm-hmm,
so yeah,
absolutely.
That's right. Well, we got to change that, and that's why I wanted to get you out here today, just to kind of share. But let's talk about the state of affairs and executive search, primarily just from the recruiting perspective. And I really want today I want us to kind of go into, and maybe what we'll do is we'll start this conversation off, and depending on where it goes, ultimately, we may have to do a part 2 of it. I'm pretty sure we will, but let's just get started and kind of talk about the state of affairs right now in an area where, the Wall Street Journal posted an article, I guess it was last week, and the article was based on the Department of Labor statistics. The Department of Labor, the Bureau of Labor Department posted the statistics for the number of jobs that are out there and available. And I think it's like 7 million jobs. And there's just not enough people to fill all those jobs.
No, and when you put that up against the low unemployment rate, which is a great thing, it can make for a very uncomfortable situation.
Absolutely.
As a growing firm that needs talent, and I think the most talent that people are realizing what they need is the 10 to 15 year middle, ready to take the next step up to a leadership position, but they just aren't there. There's a lot of factors that go into that. But yeah, it's a common problem that people are having. And you really have to kind of change your thought when it comes to recruiting. And so not only, recruiters need to think more like marketers at this point, but everyone in your firm does. There has to be a point where everyone's prepared to, pitch your firm. It should be a good 60 seconds, and whether it's to your wife or to a friend or someone that you're, meeting at the coffee shop. It's not business development, sales, or marketing necessarily. It's just needs to be a story about your firm and your work that comes out and flows easy.
Yeah. It that's, it is a process, and I think you have to always be ready to recruit, just like you always have to be ready. For those of you that are seller doers out there, you always have to be ready to sell your firm and new opportunities. So it's almost the same mindset, right, that exists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to be willing to go the extra mile. You talk about that entrepreneurial, mindset. Principals have to participate. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that we see with recruiters or with the clients and people that we interact with recruiting is that the principals aren't wanting to participate, and it's not something that they see as a high valued item. So when they take the surveys, everyone can let us know that it is one of their biggest problems, but they also need to realize that it needs to be one of their biggest investments in order to solve that problem.
Yeah. What are just a couple of tips that you can give to firms with regard to kind of just changing the mindset around recruiting to get more people engaged and involved early and often? Because I've always thought that when you think of recruiting, it's like, don't make your firm a great secret. People need to know who you are and what you do, and why you're special compared to everybody else out there.
Exactly. Firms need to market themselves. You have to do it. The market and brand recognition is going to be the first step to a candidate being even interested in a firm.
Right.
In today's society where it is information overload, and we've got the power at our fingertips in order to access some information, we're going to really need to get prodded in the right direction in order to follow that. So firms that are out there doing some cool things, whether it's, wrapping an old vehicle, RV, or a bus and having it around town,
which actually works.
It does work.
Yeah,
People recognize things like that. Short video clips. I know that CEOs and owners are really getting into really branding themselves on social media these days. And so those are all just little things that I think everyone firm-wide needs to be aware of and want to participate and want to see their firm investing in, because, the recruitment process really doesn't stop with the hire, if you ask me.
Right.
You need to continually keep recruiting your people internally. So, keep retention high and people are willing to go out and represent your firm in a really positive light to someone who might be able to come on and help you out. Okay.
So with that said, putting some of those systems in place, you're out talking to a lot of people on a regular basis, on both sides of the table. So you're talking to hiring managers that, will lament to you about the problems that they're running into, but then you also spend time actively recruiting people. And I would just be curious, just for the audience, just to get an idea of what you're hearing from people when you generally talk to them about considering new opportunities. What do they think about the current state of affairs in the design industry? Where do they see the industry going? What are you hearing? What is the constant refrain that comes up over and over again?
Sure. I think most people are doing well and seeing success within this industry. And it's keeping people happy and well paid and in their positions.
Yeah.
And so generally, I think one thing that will really influence someone as far as their current work situation is the culture at work.
Yep.
That's usually the one thing that we can dive into that they are looking for a change. And it's either because, hey, there's such action in the market that we're growing and I'm not getting the development opportunities I need to develop, and I'm starting to get deeper into things without actually becoming a better architect or an engineer, or it's the opportunities that aren't there for them. Engineers love to work and they love to stay in their jobs for a long time. I would say the average engineer probably has a longer lifespan in the workforce than most.
Right.
And so the opportunities to move up just do not present themselves in firms that aren't focused on growth. So to want to work and represent the firms that focus on growth, those are where you're going to see the most attracted people coming over.
Okay. And I know you've run across some really good statistics lately about kind of where things are and what have some of your findings been, and what are you kind of sharing with hiring managers now just to give them a better perspective about what they're up against?
Sure. Some of our Owns Wide Group surveys will show you that firms that made a higher investment in HR and recruiting are generating around an 8% higher revenue growth than the average firm that's just putting along with recruiting and kind of have the average budget there, which is generally pretty low for most people.
Right.
A lot of people don't even have an HR or a recruiting budget planned out for their yearly budget.
Yeah, and I'm surprised. And even when we talked with firms last week at our TPA, so many people just don't have real hardcore recruiting metrics. They're not keeping track of this information. So firms aren't keeping track of how much it's costing to truly acquire somebody, and then B, they're not fully up on everything that goes into this whole process of going through the recruitment process and setting up a budget for that. And I mean, you do that for every other area of the company. But HR and recruiting seems to sometimes get the short end of the stick when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's tough, and people really have to decide and to make the investment when it comes to whether it's marketing or whether it's HR or recruiting in this industry. It's a little underfunded. I think that people realize the competitiveness of the industry is starting to make people change their minds about that.
Right.
So you're seeing lots of firms go out, do fun things, change their names from the traditional block letters or group or whatever it is, and yeah, it's becoming a more attractive industry, and it's all becoming a little bit more of a design industry instead of architecture and engineering separated.
Right.
And I think that the two will influence each other in a really good way in the future.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. And I think sometimes we need a reminder of how important of a job that we have in the first place. And and I'm always telling engineers and architects that what they do is I mean, these guys are amazing. What they design, what they build, the amount of work that goes into building the infrastructure of this country, let alone the world, is of a magnitude of order of that's extremely high. And I think, a lot of times engineers and architects just need to be reminded of the great stuff that they really do.
Sure. It doesn't get celebrated enough.
No.
I know, we as a firm at Zwei Group, we want to elevate the industry, and then that's a part of our new mission. So,
right.
For everyone out there listening, if you have any ideas, anything that you want to work with us to help elevate the industry, whether it be a recruiting, marketing, or just general awareness, get a hold of us and let us know.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll make sure that you have. My contact information is always there in the show notes, but I'll make sure that you have Chad's contact information in the show notes, and you can always check us out at zweiggroup.com. But really, our concern is for the industry as a whole, not so much a Zweig Group. We will continue to do what we've been doing for almost 31 years, but I think it's just important for us to really have a plan in place for how we deal with the changing world, but also the way that things are changing in the design industry. And so specifically, today we're talking about recruitment and retention. So what are, you mentioned something earlier when you talked about culture, and I just wanted to, because culture is an issue that comes up in M&A as well. You go out and I want to buy another firm. I can't just buy any firm just because they've got 15 people that do great work. You also have to make sure that those 15 people can set themselves up properly in your culture if you're going to acquire that firm or buy that firm. But it's the same thing with recruiting. You have to make sure that that next person that you're bringing on board, even if they are an outstanding architect or engineer, that they're not going to come in and upset the apple cart in a bad way and affect all the other great workers that you already have on staff. Mm-hmm. And that's a major issue. And I thought maybe you might want to talk just a little bit about, what hiring managers can do to fully expose potential candidates to their culture to make sure that there is some type of fit there.
Sure. No, I completely agree. I hate to have a candidate isolated in the recruitment process to only an HR person or potentially the hiring manager.
Right.
So I always encourage, if we've got a team environment, let's pick the best representative off that team, let them meet with the candidate, and then also have ownership involved at every move. They are the ones that need to be setting the tone for their own culture within their firm. And if they're doing it, it's a very, very good signal to a candidate that this firm is someone, or this owner is someone who, wants to, help me grow as a professional.
Right.
So those are that's something I would highly suggest is having someone from that they would be working with a lot, meet with them. Not necessarily someone who they would report to, but someone that they would just work beside throughout a regular project or whatever it is.
Okay.
Also doing things outside of the office. I generally always try to set up a first contact if I can, somewhere neutral.
Yeah.
It really can just help relax the situation. As far as the visuals, they're a little less distracting than trying to look at things around the office or see if you know anyone who might be walking through the hallway or just however that is. So first, that's always a good suggestion is to meet on a neutral location. But be swift. If you do find somebody that you like, and everything's checked off at that point, don't hesitate, because people are not available at this point, and to find someone is real rare.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. You brought up a couple of good things. Specifically, that last issue is be swift, be quick. It's one thing that I learned from Mark a long time ago about just responsiveness and getting back to potential clients right away. And they're like, oh my God, I thought it was going to take you several days to get back to me, but you got back to me right away. That's really awesome. That's the first step that shows someone that, what, this person they're serious. And I think you can communicate that same level of seriousness and interest when you respond quickly to a candidate. Don't let a candidate wait 2 or 3 weeks wondering what's the next step or what's going to happen. Be in constant contact with them early and often, which is why you have to have a system in place as an organization when it comes to recruiting somebody, that once you know an individual and you have established contact with them, you should keep that contact up and going and just remove any doubts. Because if you do that, then if you are ultimately ready to pull the trigger, it's going to be a lot easier for you to do, as opposed to creating, thoughts in the minds of that potential candidate that, well, I don't think these guys are really serious because I haven't heard from them in a while and I don't really know what's going on. And it looks even worse when a recruiter is involved. Because when you call people, and this has happened to you, Chad, you've called people and gotten all excited about an opportunity that a client has told you they need to, for a position that they need to fill. And then you find somebody that on paper ostensibly looks pretty solid, and then it's crickets. And it's we see it over and over again. So on the one hand, these firms, and again, we get it. You guys are busy. We need people. Help us. And then we put them in front of you, and it's like, I like that person, but then sometimes you confuse things by, well, I need a resume. I need a list of projects that they've worked on. And yeah, I get you need all of that stuff, and I told these people this last week at the TPA, I said, how many of you have written what you consider to be an amazing resume? How many of you have put together a job list that you thought was just killer? And most of them acknowledged that, you know what, I don't. And then I said, how many of you guys have asked and pressed for that before you would move further in considering anybody? And a lot of them raised their hand because that's what they're trained to do. And I would just basically say, and I know you could concur with this, Chad, is that the market has changed. Yeah. And we don't have that flexibility or to kind of, dig our heels in and be like, well, I need all this information before I move further. Just have coffee with somebody. Just grab a beer.
I'm often surprised by the last second, last mile holdups that'll come from just picking up the phone and having a simple conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it can be somebody that they might already know.
Yeah.
So if I do have to give some advice, it's always be genuine. Let people know, who you are and what your firm represents. And I don't think you're going to get too much negative feedback from a lot of people. So, like you were saying, to find someone with some interest is incredibly difficult these days.
Yeah.
And then to create the interest with the client as well can be, another bag of tricks.
Yeah.
Fortunately, a part of what our recruitment process is that we're very upfront with people that, we need responsiveness. Sometimes it doesn't happen. But fortunately, I like dealing with people and solving a quick, small issue is what we do every day. So that isn't a big part of the holdup a lot of the time, but it can be.
Yeah.
And as long as you conditioned and are on the same page with whoever you're working with, it's your client, it'll always come out a positive situation. I've felt like here.
Okay. All right. Well, there you have it, folks. I mean, that's just half the battle right there. I mean, don't wait for a resume. Don't wait for a list of jobs. Sometimes just a good old Starbucks, a PSL or a pumpkin spice latte, as they say, along with a croissant will be just enough for you to gain the insight and knowledge that you need to determine if somebody is someone that you ultimately want to work with, that you want to hire, that you want to be part of your employment family. And it's really not that hard. And I know we run across people, and I'm sure some people are saying, hey, Randy, you just don't understand. I'm just busy. I'm flat out. Well, there's a reason why you're busy. And a lot of times it's because you're doing work that really should be apportioned out to more than one person. And it's because you don't have the horses. You don't have the extra hands and feet to help you out. And that's all we're trying to do. That's all that, a good recruiter, a good HR consultant is trying to do, is to put really good bodies in front of you to consider. So talk a little bit about, just kind of where are there any other hacks that you would throw out there that you think would be helpful for a hiring manager that might be struggling right now, trying to budget their time with the work that they have on their plate, the projects that they're dealing with, the clients that are upset about whatever, and the fact that their boss is telling them, listen, you need to hire some more people.
Sure.
And they just can't find the time.
Well, keep calm. That's what I try to tell myself at the end of every day.
Yes.
No, I like to think that most of the decisions that I can make throughout the day, the small ones, they're already made in my mind. So, I really like to stay focused in the afternoons, heavy in the recruitment process, early in the morning, try to get here early, figure out, what are the gaps in my schedule that day and what can I fill those in with. So, as a part of the recruiting process at Zweig Group, I'm very excited to help with that. We've just opened up our Dallas office.
That's exciting.
Making some strategic hires down there, and then also filling in some people back here in Fayetteville as well. But as far as actually reaching out to people, there's a variety of different ways, and you have to stay really disciplined. As far as tracking things, I would always suggest having a good ATS or applicant tracking system.
Sure.
That's going to help you keep the follow-ups going, because that's where the real conversations start. It's really rare that we get a hold of anybody in the first couple of times that we try to contact someone. These people are busy, and there's 3 or 4, 5, 6 different avenues to get a hold of anyone these days. So you really got to find the right one. And it's surprising to see what 60-year-old person will get back to you on Facebook, and then the young kid will pick up the phone over lunch. It can be random. So you got to cover all your bases.
Okay. All right.
Another quick hack I would really always suggest, that's bitten me in the butt a couple times, is get the wife or the significant other involved, or the spouse.
I was waiting for you to mention that.
They're probably the biggest decision maker.
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
Bigger than the person you're actually recruiting at the time.
Yeah.
So having them involved from the beginning is something that I've seen a lot of success with, and it can empower a candidate, and it can show the candidate that your client or your firm that you're working with is really focused on that type of recruitment process, instead of boilerplate resume analysis. Then they do the first interview, then we come in for the panel interview, and then we tell you we'll call you back in 2 to 3 weeks.
Right.
You can't have that. Not today. So doing little things like getting the spouse involved, seeing if the family can join you for dinner or over a weekend at a company event, all those things, you have to do them these days.
Yeah, and you know what that means, and I'm kind of asking you, the listening audience, do you know what that means? That means you have to spend some money. You have to spend some money to get good clients, to get good candidates. You have to spend money to get good clients. You have to spend good money to get good candidates, and what Chad is suggesting is something that Mark Zweig has been saying for years, that I've been saying for years. You got to get these significant others and spouses involved early and often. I've gotten kids involved in the process, because I'm telling you, a child, a young teenager with athletic aspirations, or maybe a whole bunch of stuff going on, can torpedo any opportunity. You need to know everything. Don't just assume that I'll just figure it out, or he can work out his familial situation. Be proactive in helping out. Is there anything I can do, Mr. or Mrs. Candidate, to help you make this process smoother? Is there anything I can help you out with your family? Be proactive. Yes, it has nothing to do directly with what they're going to do on the job, but it has everything to do with it.
Sure. We've done everything from check out daycares, schools. Get legal counsel involved for, real estate situations.
Right. I forgot about that. Yes, absolutely.
There's a ton of different things you can do.
Yeah.
And if there's those are things you should also identify early on in the recruiting process. Is what would be any major holdup to get something like this done.
Yeah.
And usually you can start to uncover some of the big things pretty easily.
Yeah.
And combat them. And really say, hey, there's a way to solve this, and we've done it before, and here's how we've helped people. So that in a lot of situations, especially in a relocation has you have to be able to do it as a recruiter. And then if you can't have a recruiter do it, you just know as a HR professional or a principal or an owner of a firm, those are the small steps you have to take to make the difference and differentiate your firm from everyone else who's doing the same recruiting.
Exactly. And you bring up a good point. And so, I mean, Chad's point simply is if you're using an outside recruiter, make sure that they go the extra mile to do those little things. I mean, stuff that you wouldn't even think about as a hiring manager that recruiters have to deal with. And I know at Zwei Group, like Chad said, we've dealt with a little bit of everything. So if your internal people are not trained in that or maybe need a little extra help, they can always contact us and we'd be more than happy to walk them through some scenarios about how to get the most out of any potential candidate that they're trying to pursue. And especially just making sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's throughout the process. Because one slip up can mess up everything. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you bring up some really, really good points. And I mean, certainly that's one of the benefits of hiring a good recruiter because they will help you out. It's the reason why you hire a doctor to set your arm in a cast, because even if you've seen a bunch of YouTube videos, it may not end up well for you. So, it's something where you might want to get the experts involved or at least pick the brains of the experts so that you can set yourself up for success in this area. Because to me, if you're spending money to acquire new talent, but then all you're doing is spending money to acquire talent, but not to make sure that everybody on your team is prepared to deal with the influx of potential candidates that come through the door, then you're really missing out.
Sure. Yeah.
So
it's a team effort inside and out, onboarding process. Everybody in the firm needs to be on board during that as well.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a quarterly or a monthly lobby meetup just to meet the new people in the firm or do a quick celebration. Whatever it is, it needs to be a celebrated environment and something that someone would want to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good. Well, I mean, I think that's quite a bit, and just I think it's a little taste of what we wanted to share. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Chad back on again very soon on the podcast to talk a little bit more about some specific recruitment related issues. I know Chad and I are going to go out in a couple of months to do a few trainings in house where we do kind of like a hiring and keeping great talent in-house training where we help you and your hiring managers and your HR people to be more efficient in this recruiting process. And what we do is we take kind of the largesse of what Zwei Group has experienced over the years, as well as kind of the best practices that we see right now in the industry, and distill that into, a half day or a full day training that really kind of gets to the root of how do you prepare your people to be brand ambassadors for your company, to always be selling opportunities to join your firm, and, just the ways to set yourself up for a solid recruitment experience for anybody that you go after. So, I mean, these are some things that can be very beneficial. If you ever need any more information about that, you can always reach out to Chad or myself, and we'll be more than happy to talk with you about that and how we can, if nothing else, set your people up for success in the area of recruitment and retention. So, anything else that you want to add, Chad? I know, like I said, we haven't had you on for a while, and, we're going to get you on the podcast with a little bit more frequency. I know you've got a lot going on in your personal life, a lot of good stuff happening, but anything else you want to add?
No, just that this is a really rewarding time in the industry right now as far as being able to help and consult with some clients, whether it's just a conversation or an actual project that gets completed. Everything at this point is magnified in the recruiting in HR space. So to be able to get out there and help out and just connect with some people, that's my whole goal. So I love doing stuff like this with Randy, and to encourage all of everyone else. If you guys have someone in your firm like Randy, have them set up a podcast, get people on it, get them excited. It's a tool that you can use internally and externally, and it's just something to once again differentiate yourself from a competitor.
Yeah, absolutely. The check is in the mail, my friend. That's a good plug right there for sure. I need to talk about that more because I think I'm surprised that more firms don't do this, but certainly if you are listening to this and you haven't been on this podcast, but you'd like to kind of share what's happening at your firm, the things that you're doing that really set you guys apart, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is rwilburn@zweiggroup.com, and I'll get right back in touch with you and we'll figure something out. And I'd love to have you on as a guest. You can be right on the other side of the table from me and we can discuss this, or you can be thousands of miles away and we'll Skype in an interview and make it happen. But Chad, thank you so much for taking the time today to do this. I really appreciate it. This was great. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. Like I said, in the show notes, I'll make sure that you have Chad's email address, but just for the audience, just so they have it, why don't you just give it to them real quick?
Sure. My email is ccoldiron@zweiggroup.com.
Okay. He's got one of the coolest last names in the world. It's like an actor's last name, Chad Coldiron. So coming to a theater near you. So, all right. Well, that's it for the Zweig Letter podcast. That is our episode for today. We really appreciate you, our listening audience. Thank you for all the great feedback that you give us. If you ever get a chance and you're on iTunes and you want to rate the podcast, we would love a review, an honest review of what you think about what we're doing here, what we could improve upon, what you really love about the podcast, how it's helped you out. Please let us know. I'm always amazed when I run into people at different events and they're like, oh, I've been listening to your podcast since day one. And I know that you guys rely on it, which is why we get the podcast out every Friday at noon. That's our goal. Sometimes it might be Saturday, depending on the situation, but more often than not, it gets out on Friday at noon. I've got an amazing podcast editor, Joel Sharpton, that does some great things for us. And so I'm thankful for him, and I'm thankful for everybody at this company that makes it happen on a daily basis. But that's all for now that we have. And feel free to check us out online at zweiggroup.com. We also have a free subscription to the Zweig Letter newsletter, which has run continuously since 1992. I would urge you to get a free subscription to that. You can sign up not only yourself, but you can sign up your whole company for the TZL, which I think is a great subscription to have, and Civil Plus Structural Magazine. There's that as well. So check us out at zweiggroup.com. All the information to get your free subscriptions to the Zweig Letter and Civil Plus Structural Magazine is right there on the website. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and this is the Zweig Letter Podcast. We are elevating the industry one podcast at a time. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to this Zweig Letter podcast episode. If you want more wisdom and inspiration, in addition to information about M&A, strategic planning, HR, and marketing your firm, subscribe now to the digital version of the Zweig Letter free of charge. Just visit thezweigletter.com/subscribe and leave your email address. Your free subscription will begin immediately.